going on, guys? Hey, Mike Shaner with Mike and Ben. No Treason with Ben and Mike. Ben's not here this week, so it's just me. That's why we're not doing a live stream. But we took the holidays off, and then he got sick, so I at least wanted to download something to YouTube, say hey to you guys, and let you know I appreciate you and we hadn't died. Also want to reach out to Ben, tell him I hope you feel better, buddy. It's not easy to do this show without you. My dog's trying to get up here. It's not easy to do this show without you, and I apologize to everyone at home watching this that has to watch it without Ben here, because he really makes it so much easier for me to do this. You know, I do the Sedition Papers podcast on my own. That's always just a monologue, and it's hard for me to stay on track. You know, my mind rambles all over the place, and so Ben always keeps it in check, and he keeps us going. It's really hard to do this, but I'm going to get through it best I can. I got a lot on my mind. A lot of stuff I'll talk about that Ben's not real comfortable talking about some of this stuff. I'm not going to speak for him, but like he likes to stay out of really just party business and things like that, and and talk more on outside stuff, and I appreciate that, you know, and I don't ever want to cross those lines, but I like to get a little bit more into the inside baseball, not just what I think, you know, just my thoughts on things. So, and I'm not going to cross any lines. I'm not going to discuss anything I think Ben wouldn't approve of. I'm just going to not put him in the situation to have to. So, libertarian infighting is always a, you know, it's a buzzword. It's a kind of a cliche almost that we, as libertarians, can't get anything accomplished because we're too busy fighting each other. And everybody wonders why. Like, why is that? You know, the other parties fight too, obviously, but we fight to such an extreme, or it seems like to such an extreme, that we can't get anything accomplished. And you know, so the question on that is why. And well, one thing is, I don't think it's necessarily true. Like it's true, we fight. I don't mean that's not true. I think it's not necessarily true that we fight more than the Democrats or the Republicans or any other party. The difference, I think, is we're so much smaller than they are, that the fighting affects us a lot more, because if you have, you know, if even 80% of Republicans are infighting all the time, 20% of that doing the work is still a whole lot of people, you know, compared to us, where if 20% of us are the ones doing the work, it's a couple of people, you know, and that makes it really hard. That makes it a lot more glaring when it's more like a family not getting anything done, like a little family business not getting anything done versus a giant corporation. And that's a huge problem. So you would think, though, that Ron Paul said I'm an imperfect messenger, but the message is perfect. You would think with such a perfect message, we really wouldn't have a whole lot to fight about, but I mean, we do. We fight so much. So I got to wondering why. You know, why is that? And I think part of it, so it goes back a little bit in time, and what's got me on this is so I'm a member of the Mises Caucus of the Libertarian Party. The Mises Caucus is a caucus in the Libertarian Party, which recently took over the national. They run the Libertarian National Committee, and they're sort of in charge of messaging and all that stuff for national right now. But they're separate entities. It's a caucus, you know, like the Freedom Caucus for the Republican Party or something like that. And the goal of the Mises Caucus, quite simply, is to restore libertarianism to the Libertarian Party. We're the Ron Paul wing of the Libertarian Party, and that's why I joined them. And I'm not much of a joiner, so it took a lot and I've discussed this, so I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but that's why I became a member of the caucus. And, you know, we're like, Scott Horton is a big hero of mine, antiwar.com. And so I think that certain things, are libertarian and certain things are not. And I think that the reason for the caucus to exist was a lot of people who identify more as progressives, or I don't know what the terminology is. I hate using the word woke. It seems so, but you know, a lot of the woke leftist progressive types had taken over the Libertarian Party. And the Libertarian Party's been a joke for, you know, most of our lives, all of our lives. And the reason the caucus came into existence is it wanted to bring that message, that perfect message to the party. And sorry, I've been out clearing some pasture and I got a splinter eating at me. Anyway, to bring that perfect message to the party. And you would think it would, I mean, in my mind, that would be something everybody could coalesce around, but it's not. That's been a huge controversy and a huge, not everybody agrees with Ron Paul. You know, I don't know how you can be a libertarian and not agree with him on 75-80% of things, and the other 20% should be things that we can disagree about civilly, but it's not always the case. So one of the members of the caucus posted in one of the libertarian chat rooms an anti-war meme, and you would think that would be, you know, you think that'd go over pretty well in a libertarian platform. And somebody responded, blah, 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 and it not in a, like it shouldn't have been controversial, but somehow it turned into a controversial post and a debate on what we should, if we should be, what is the appropriate level of intervention in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And obviously, from my point of view, the appropriate level, and I think from the libertarian point of view, the appropriate level of intervention is 0. And I don't see that as debatable, honestly. I don't see that. I mean, you can debate if we should intervene. You can't debate it from a libertarian perspective. And I think that got me to thinking, like, why are we having this fight, you know? And then so why is the caucus necessary? Why does the Libertarian Party need to be steered towards the direction of libertarianism? I mean, that seems like a natural thing. And I think the answer is, a long time ago, the party was, I don't know if conquered's the right word, infiltrated's the right word, but the party started moving drastically left a long time ago. And I think at that time, there was a big push to condemn purity, libertarian purity. It's almost as if you say, it's become a joke, you're not a real libertarian, or I'm the only real libertarian. But it's almost as if saying a libertarian, a real libertarian, it's almost like saying that thing exists. It's like saying a unicorn exists, or it's become like a dirty word in the party. And for those in the movement, oh, you're the only real libertarian, you're not a libertarian. So the idea was to open this big tent to get everybody to come in, and we could grow the party by everybody being a libertarian, and then anybody who doesn't go along with that was sort of ostracized, and oh, you're a gatekeeper, and we've got to end this gatekeeping thing, and blah, blah, blah. We need as many people in as we can get. Well, the problem is, when you get everybody in, then obviously you're going to fight a lot. You're not going to coalesce around a message and a thing because you don't agree on even the principle of what you're doing. So now, and I got, on the last video I made, my personal video, I got sort of ridiculed by actually someone very close to the anti-war, or to the war mongering. Anyway, I got ridiculed for the no true Scott statement. And it exists. I mean, it has to exist. I'm not the same as Bill Maher. We agree on some things, but I'm not the same as him. We don't share a philosophy, and he doesn't share a philosophy with Larry Elder, both of whom have at one time been members of the party, and both of whom have claimed to be. I can't say. I'm pretty positive they've been. I know Larry Elder has. I think Maher was. But I know that they both used the label libertarian. If both of those men are libertarian, one's a neocon conservative, one is pretty good on civil liberties, getting a lot better lately, but very, very different people. If both of those people share the same philosophy, what is the philosophy? If you can't say what something's not, like if you can't say that is not this, then this doesn't exist and nobody wants to be a part of you. That's why, and then you get a group of, you get people like me who, I think I'm a principled libertarian, and you may disagree with me, and you're okay. We can disagree on that. I don't think you'd disagree with me that I'm a principled libertarian. I think you might say I have, anyway, we can disagree on some terms, but there has to be a core message of what you are and what you stand for. If that it isn't true, if I stand for this and we agree on one issue or two or three or four issues, but on the main focus of like property rights and being anti-war, then like those are big deals. And yeah, there should be some kind of litmus test, I guess, some kind of purity test. I mean, if you want to be taken seriously, like if somebody says, what does the Libertarian Party stand for? And you say, oh, it stands for this. And then you say, okay, what does that mean? And I have one answer, and this cat over here has a completely, totally separate, different answer. How are we're people that can work together on issues we agree with, but how are we members of the same movement? Because we're not moving towards the same thing. We're moving towards the same thing on certain issues, but when we get to this issue, we agree. Like Ron Paul and Dennis Kucinich agree a lot on war. You know, they agreed very much on war, but they disagreed on economics completely. Kucinich is a civil libertarian, but he's not a libertarian, and he didn't claim to be. You know, they agreed on civil issues. They agreed on war, but they didn't agree on economics at all. They didn't share the same philosophy. And when it got to that, they would be at war with each other, you know. And so they could agree on this issue and go messaging right, but then the infighting, if they were to try to just move towards a movement, the infighting would exist between those two people, you know, because at that point you have very, very different philosophies. You can't have 100 different philosophies inside of one movement and call it a movement. What you have is chaos, disorder. It doesn't work. A former chair of the Libertarian Party of Alabama recently tweeted out, she tweeted out some criticism to one of the affiliates because they want to charge dues, whatever, and that's her business. She can express her opinion. I thought it was interesting that she reached out to in that tweet. She included Nick Sarwark, who is not a real libertarian. Not by any stretch, and yeah, I think it's time to bring that term back. I think that if you wanna build a movement, you need to it needs to be a movement. You need to stand for something. You need people that agree with you on things, and you need to be exclusive. Exclusive as in we share principles. We're fighting towards the same thing. Nick Sarwark and I are not in the same. We're not the same. We're not the same. We're different. We're very different people. If he is a libertarian, I'm not. And I'm an anarchist, so you can call me whatever. I say, oh, he's not a libertarian. I use it in that broad tent that trickles down. But I'm not. I don't share values. I don't share a common value with Sarwark. He was for mandating the military to get vaccinated. He was for. He was very, very, very in favor of masks, and he was very much a Covidian. He is very much in favor of intervention. He is very much in favor of thought police, all these things. I think these things are very anti-libertarian. I think they're very anti the movement that I am trying to progress. So that's my point. And this former chair of Alabama, I'm not going to give her publicity by speaking her name here, but she tweets to him and likes him and likes for the Libertarian Party of Alabama to send him money. And as we wasted a bunch of money on him last year, and it was a big controversy within the party, and she's trying to get him more money this year. And then I just thought it was included that he's not a libertarian in Alabama. He's not. He has nothing to do with this state except for he conned the LPA out of some money. So I thought it was interesting that she included him on a tweet about a county affiliate in the state of Alabama. That seemed odd to me. And then a former chair of the state of Alabama, founding member, respected by both sides that I had respect for her. Also, even though I disagreed with her on most things, she tweeted that Scott Horton deserved to be banned from Twitter because he violated the terms of service by saying by telling Zelensky that he basically call him a warmonger, what he is, and telling him to shoot himself and so not only did she get upset because Scott Horton, for God's sake, she said supposedly anti-war. She called Scott Horton. Scott Horton is not supposedly anti-war. Scott Horton is anti-war. He is the anti-war person. He is, if you go back for the past 20 years, he alone has done more than the Libertarian Party, and I mean all of the Libertarian parties over the past 20 years for the movement. He is a hero of the movement. He's a giant of the movement, and he has become that because he has been very, very, very principled, very knowledgeable. Look up Scott Horton if you don't know him. He is one of the most knowledgeable people, especially when it comes to foreign. He's a foreign policy expert. He debated and annihilated Bill Kristol at the Soho Forum. Check that out too. That's an interesting watch. So to have her say that Twitter should censor this man, yes, Twitter is a private company, he can censor whatever. To say that Twitter should censor an anti-war hero for saying that a warmonger shouldn't exist is who is a monster to his own people, who imprisons religious leaders, who imprisons his rivals, who keeps the people of the Donbass region captive, even though they want us to see. This man, that's what we're up against. So her and I, we're not the same, And I don't believe that. I believe that Russia. Okay. So I watched the Michael Heiss interview with Reason, and they asked the question, and Nick Gillespie debated it kind of passionately that we don't want to become contrarians, and it seems like maybe now that Mises has taken over, we're against the current thing, and because we're not in favor of intervening in Ukraine, and we were against vaccines. We were more right on vaccines if the party had have taken up the vaccine mandate when the caucus took up the vaccine mandate, that those people would still be in power because they would have stood for something. They would have fucking stood for something. That's important. But they didn't. They don't want to get ostracized. They don't want to say anything that's too extreme. But the caucus, thank God, did. There was a violation of freedom. That shouldn't be considered extreme for the fucking Libertarian Party. But anyway, they didn't do it. And we were against the mandates, and we were against the intervention in Ukraine, right? And so one of the questions Gillespie asked is, he said, and I've seen a lot of people use this line of thinking. Well, if you can be against the war in Ukraine and recognize that that the people of Ukraine have a right to defend themselves, and so I stand in solidarity, or I condemn Russia and reaffirm or affirm your belief that Ukrainians should have the right to defend themselves. So that's fucking stupid, right? That's real stupid, because of course Ukrainians have the right to defend themselves. Nobody needs to say that. That's insane. Nobody needs to come out and say, oh, I'm against racism. That's insane. We know. That's not brave. You don't need to say, oh, I'm not for intervention, but what Putin's doing to Ukraine is wrong, and God bless those people. Yeah, what Putin's doing what any government does is wrong. Putin's a monster. He's a monster amongst monsters. He's even he's right there rivaling the U.S. With the atrocities we commit in genocide in Yemen. But the problem is nobody has to say that. We understand that. America hates Russia. That's not, you don't have to come out and say. Anytime anybody says anything against giving money to Ukraine, it's, oh, you're falling for the Russian propaganda. That's the biggest lack of thought response that you can give. That is the biggest I fall for United States government propaganda response, United States media propaganda response that you can give. Nobody's defending Russia. What happens between Russia and Ukraine happens between Russia and Ukraine. It's very, very complicated. It's like the Middle East. It's very, very, very complicated. And it's not going to be something that we can discuss or figure out in 20 minutes on an interview or in a chat room. And it's not something that we have a right to figure out. It's between the people of Ukraine and Russia. And the United States government has no moral authority to decide that Russia shouldn't invade anybody, because we invade every fucking body. And we're currently, as we're doing this, destroying Yemen. And that's asinine. No, we don't need to say we stand with Ukraine. Fuck, yeah, you know, I want the Ukrainian people to be free as much as I want the Alabamian people to be free. I want everybody to be free. I don't care enough about Ukraine to go over there and fight for them. I'm not going to go over there. I won't send my son over to fight for Ukraine. I won't, and I'm not going to send my money to Ukraine voluntarily. So what happens between Ukraine and Russia is between Ukraine and Russia. If you believe differently, you have every right to go fight for Ukraine, to send your money. You don't have a right to send your kids, but you've got a right to send your guns, support them, do everything you can. You should have, I'm wholeheartedly behind that right. But if you're not willing to do those things, if you're not willing to personally do those things, then you have no right to demand that I do them. And by that, I mean demand that the government steal my money and fund a war in Ukraine. If you are willing to do it, you have no right to demand that I do it. That shouldn't be controversial. That it's not a libertarian position. That is the libertarian position. It is not something that we can debate. Is that libertarianism or not? If you say libertarianism is stealing from people to help other people, then you're discussing something that isn't libertarianism. We're not the same. We're not moving towards the same goal. So what we have to do here is, and then I heard this argument also. Well, we can just send them our old. Okay, well, we can send them our old weapons. They say. If my neighbor across the street comes up to me and says, "Hey, this guy down the road's been giving me a hard time. You mind giving me a gun so I can go and kill him?" And I did that. I'm an accessory to murder. I mean, I giving the Ukrainians guns to fight Russia is an act of war. And what a lot of people are missing, like, people want to ignore that this is just more regime change. It's what the United States government wants. And I think a lot of it has to do with Edward Snowden, actually. I think a lot of it is they don't like that that Putin gave him asylum, and that he's living. They were able to get Assange, but Snowden's untouchable as long as Putin's in power. But the so-called libertarians don't care. The guys that hero worship Snowden, they don't care. They don't even think about it like that because fuck Putin, right? Because it's Russian propaganda. You can think for yourself. And until you don't have to agree with me on any of that. You don't have to agree with me about. You don't have to even agree with me about the offenses that Zelensky, I mean, it's fact, but you don't have to agree with me about the facts. The only thing you have to agree with me about is that if you're a libertarian, you're going to call yourself that, is that whatever is happening, the United States has no right. What the United States has to do to intervene. The United States has to clean up its own house. Once that's settled, once the United States cleans up its own house, once we quit invading other countries, then we can lead by example, and we can quit waging war on our own citizens. We can quit arresting people. We can quit militarizing our own police against our own citizens. We can quit weaponizing the FBI against political dissidents. We can do things like that and focus on those things. And once we do that, once we get all that shit cleaned up, once we get it all cleaned up, then maybe we'll have the moral authority to tell other countries not to fuck with other countries. But when we use force, even then, we lose that moral authority. But right now, it doesn't matter. We don't have it anyway. The United States government has no right to tell any other country what to do. And to pretend it does is an anti-libertarian stance. Libertarianism starts with property rights. It says, I own myself. I am my own property. what my labor produces is my property. You have no rights to those things. You have no right to my body. You have no right to what my body does. It all stems back to that. And that has to be a core tenet of libertarianism. For this party to ever grow and move forward the way that it wants to, the way that it pretends to, it has to be able to say what we are, and it has to be able to say what we're not. Being anti-war, being for private property, those are non-negotiable. In my opinion, those are non-negotiable. Until those things happen, the caucus will be needed. Once the Libertarian Party becomes filled with libertarians that agree on we can disagree on issues. We can disagree on lots of things. We can't disagree on things like thought crimes, things like property rights, things like war. Fucking war. We can't. And until we realize that, we're just running on a hamster wheel. Hey, thanks for spending 25 minutes and 57 seconds with me. Mike Shaner, check me out, CSA Wordsmith on Twitter. Mike Shaner on Facebook and Instagram. Please follow the podcast, and I promise it'll be better next week when Ben's back. I just wanted to say hey to you guys and vent a little bit. So subscribe. It's No Treason with Ben and Mike. It'll be also, please follow Writing the Revolution on Facebook. Thinking if there's anything else I can plug right now, but I guess that's it. Be free. The one thing I always say, my motto is a free man's got to be a slave to his word. Be honest. Take care of your kids. Deal in cash. Be free. See you next week.